Hello, everyone. Over the course of this year, our Dow Sustainability Fellows team has collaborated with Detroit Horsepower, whose mission is to provide urban youth a safe and engaging environment to learn valuable skills through riding and caring for horses. Since 2015, DHP has facilitated its youth development program by transporting Detroit-based students to partner barns outside the city. DHP is now in the process of building a new urban equine education center to support the expansion of their youth program, grow their impact within the city, and turn a 14-acre vacant lot in the Hope Village neighborhood into a community asset. DHP's new headquarters is on track to open by 2024 and is currently in the design development phase with architecture firm McIntosh Porras and landscape architecture firm Living Lab. Our role on the project team has been to develop a holistic manure management plan for a full stable of up to 24 horses.
Now introducing our team from left to right. Charlotte Daya, Master of Urban and Regional Planning and our team leader. Myself, Talia Moretti, Master of Architecture and our budget leader. Sophia Camarero, Master of Sustainable Systems and Chemical Engineering and our Information Technology leader. Prescott Trudeau, Master of Architecture and our Client Relations leader. And Olivia Stillman, Masters of Urban and Regional Planning and Master of Social Work and our Communications leader. We have also been fortunate to work with Jen McGray this semester from Taubman College as our advisor and our consultant, Margaret Woldridge.
So the primary challenge of our project was to design a sustainable solution for manure management in an urban setting that is both cost-effective and logistically viable for Detroit Horsepower. Along the way, we've had to consider, at first, just the staggering volume of material and the very real need to manage it. Neighborhood concerns, primarily of visual and odoriferous nuisance. Gaining city approval without any other organization as precedence. The need for flexibility to accommodate a scaling up of horses, availability of labor, and other factors, as well as the environmental impacts of different waste management solutions, and the potential community partners for future implementation. Lastly, articulating the viability of sustainable manure management to the client and project architects who ultimately will be in charge of advocating for it to city officials.
Particular key metrics and information from DHP have been integral to guiding our approach to evaluating possible manure management strategies. So first, they plan to open in 2024 with 8 horses, eventually scaling up to as many as 24 horses. They plan to employ a full-time barn manager as well as have some part-time barn staff. Additionally, the students who participate in the programs will contribute to the horse care practices. Over the course of our project, their timeline has actually shifted by about a year. So originally they planned to open in 2023. Now that'll be about 2024. They already also plan to get certain farm equipment that could contribute to manure management like composting. So they will have wheelbarrows as well as a tractor. And lastly, we also had the opportunity to meet with the architects and landscape architects on this project, and that greatly contributed to our understanding of the spatial allocation for manure management on their overall site, and also things that they might be more receptive to supporting.
So our project was organized into 3 phases. Phase 1 focused on researching potential waste management solutions, case studies of operating stables, and meetings with experts in the equine field. Regional equestrian centers and farms provided relevant information for DHP's facility based on comparable size and horse care practices. At the end of phase 1, we selected composting as the primary method to pursue. Phase 2 centered on meeting with potential community partners and planning the logistics of implementing composting on site, hauling the manure off-site, or a hybrid of the 2 options. Over the course of phase 3, we synthesized our research into 3 frameworks through which DHP may manage their manure in the future.
So as Prescott just mentioned, in phase 1, we focused on the different possible uses for the manure. So those would be sending it directly to a landfill, biodigestion, direct field application, mushroom growing, biomass boiler, composting, or more specifically, mechanical composting. So a single horse in a day produces about 50 pounds of manure. Added in with the bedding that would be in any given stall, that's about 1.6 cubic feet of manure or waste. And then over just a single day, if there's 10 horses, that's 15 cubic feet. And over a single week, that's over up to 115 cubic feet of manure to handle. So considering that, as well as the carbon impact of these different methods, biosecurity involved with some of them, and the level of dryness of horse manure in comparison to other types of manure, we zoomed in on focusing specifically on composting as the primary method. Composting also offers the benefit that it has a very low environmental impact, as well as the fact that it requires very minimal equipment in comparison to, say, a biomass boiler or biodigestion. And it also matches well with the cost and scale of DHP, or their cost availability. As well, many of the precedents that we evaluated consistently used composting to deal with horse manure, further reinforcing that as a good option.
Our proposal for managing DHP's waste stream focuses on an on-site composting operation. Using the current site plan developed by the architects McIntosh Porras, we have formulated a proposal specific to DHP, but with the breakdown of all the factors to consider during the final design process. We recommend a 3 or 4 bay structure, which would adequately contain the projected manure production over the course of time necessary for the composting process. The design considers dumpster service as well in case of overflow, as well as siting strategies to mask odors and avoid leaching.
So over the course of the summer, we had the opportunity to meet with 5 different potential community partners for DHP, either in accepting raw manure or accepting fully processed compost. So those groups were Cadillac Urban Gardens, Detroit Dirt, Earthworks Urban Farm, Georgia Street Collective, and Midtown Composting. And they represented positive precedents both for zoning and also understanding their composting processes. They also represent an opportunity for the possibility of a hybrid approach where maybe some of the manure is composted on site and some of the manure is sent to their site, both allowing for community engagement as well as minimizing the environmental impact without requiring composting of all of that manure quantity on DHP's site.
The proposed manure management strategy has the potential to make positive environmental and social impacts. Choosing to compost the manure instead of sending it to a landfill will reduce greenhouse emissions, mainly due to the minimized CO2 from transport and the elimination of methane production that occurs in landfills. Methane has a global warming potential 20 times higher than CO2. On-site composting also offers an educational medium for student participants at DHP to learn about sustainability in the circular economy. Furthermore, this method of waste management encourages community engagement between DHP and its neighbors by generating a community asset for regional gardens and urban farms that support neighborhood food security and act as a community hub.
So just wrapping up with 3 key takeaways from our overall project. First, we recommend on-site composting to DHP as the best method, both for their capacity and their scale. It also has the possible impacts of being able to contribute positively to that community and its resiliency, reduce the greenhouse gases that would be emitted from this manure, and also offer an opportunity for youth education. We have identified a number of potential community partners that they may have, but any of these partnerships would need to be formalized in the future when they are closer to opening in 2024. And last, we have provided full practices and resources for understanding how to compost best to DHP, but those would need to be fully implemented again when they open in 2024.
And we'd like to end by thanking and acknowledging the Dow Company Foundation through the Dow Sustainability Fellows program at the University of Michigan for supporting this work. We'd also like to thank Margaret Woolridge and Jen McGray for advising us, and David Silver, DHP's founder and executive director, for his generosity of time and commitment, as well as the many individuals and organizations that have aided in our research over the last year. Thank you.
That was really interesting. And it reminds me, I think there may be chances to scale what you've been learning, because I don't know, how many of you seen the movie Urban Cowboy? It's a really good movie. There are people taking care of horses in downtown Philadelphia and maybe other cities as well. So, and that's been going on for a long time. Anyway, Questions, Mary?
Yeah, so did you look at this being a possible revenue stream for?
Oh, pause a moment, we need the microphone.
Sorry.
Did you look at this as a possible revenue, potential revenue generator for Detroit Horsepower, and what did that look like?
Yeah, so it's sort of like the conflation of whether people are willing to spend money on it, depending on like what level of process and also how particular they are. It's sort of a lot of the recommendations we got were to like consider like who you want the output to be before you choose the inputs for the compost. So if it's somebody who's an organic vegetable purveyor, obviously they're going to be a lot more specific and also a lot more willing to pay for that compost. So it depends on how much time and energy they're willing to put into producing it, on whether they could or could not use it as a possible income source. Currently, it seems like it's not necessarily their top priority in day-to-day activities, so probably would be more likely that they would give it away or maybe a minimal cost for people to have it delivered. Okay.
Very good. Other questions? Alex?
In one of your first slides, you talked about needing to make the case for why this is important and worth doing. Can you talk a little bit more about who you made that case to? It seems like the executive director was supportive, but more about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. When we first met with the project architects, their initial proposal for dealing with the waste management was to just get a dumpster and have landfill service. That was what they were planning for. That's what the composting, there was no composting pad. That was what the site that they'd laid out for waste storage would be used for, is just to be hauled away. So we had to come up with the design proposal and really convince them of the viability of what we were doing. And I think they're on board. We're happy to say that they're excited about the opportunity and think that as long as we have a flexible system that allows for overflow capacity, that then we'll be able to gain approval from the city.
Sorry, can I just add?
Yeah.
On top of that, the other concern is that we don't get to participate in the city approval meetings, and so we have to have those architects on board to advocate for this method, because if they don't feel strongly about it, then the city's not going to be convinced of it. So that was part of the reason for trying to really lobby them for it.
Final quick question.
I'll chime in with a comment real quickly. Organic farming and manure is particularly challenging, and more than likely the horses are going to be on a dewormer schedule, much like most of your pets are, and that means they're not able to donate manure to anything organic. So it's challenging. People don't realize, how hard it is to get rid of the waste. So,
That's interesting.
anybody else? Last questions?
I'll just throw in one question or comment for the future, which is, given what you're doing in terms of reducing methane exposure, there may potentially be some sort of carbon credit opportunity for the organization as well. Especially methane over the first 20 years is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So think about that. Wonderful. Let's give them another round of applause.